A few weeks ago, I was scrolling through Netflix and I saw this. Ninjago. I hadn't watched Ninjago in years, but going back through it and watching a few seasons, it's actually really good. There's a very large amount of lore to the series, and most of it's actually pretty good. But even rewatching it for the 10th time in my life, there was a few things that I still had questions about. One of those things is the elemental powers. They make sense on the surface, but there's much more to them and some interesting questions brought up when evaluating them. Let's jump in. Alright, before we get into the weird stuff, I'm going to make sure we're all on the same page. First, there are 5 elemental essences, then there are 4 main elements, and then there are 16 secondary elements. First, the elemental essences. The elemental essences are basically the OG powers. They're all extremely powerful and they all balance each other out. The 5 elemental essences are golden power, creation, energy, destruction, and darkness.
Hey, me from the future here. That was really fast, so I'm going to leave these on screen for a little bit.
The only one of these not used by the first Spinjitzu Master is destruction. So, golden. What's the deal? Golden is basically the strongest combination of the 4 main elements, fire, ice, lightning, and earth, associated with the color gold, obviously, and the true form of creation. It's pretty much the perfect elephant. It's
hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yes, it's a perfect elephant.
Think sad thoughts.
Sorry. Remember that funny movie where the dog dies?
It's pretty much the perfect element. It's very similar to creation, it just doesn't have as much potential to create stuff. It is the good side of the yin and yang. Next, creation. Creation is basically an off-brand golden power. It's less powerful than golden power, but it's much better at creating stuff. It is still extremely powerful though, and it is associated with the color dull gold. Next, we flip to the opposite side of the spectrum and talk about darkness. Darkness is basically the opposite of golden power and is associated with the color dark purple. It is the dark side of the yin and yang and basically the same power as golden, just bad. You know what? I'm just going to read this. The only user of darkness was the Overlord, who used his power to affect more Ninjago than any other being, as he was the one who corrupted a snake to create the Great Devourer, who corrupted Garmadon, who may or may not be a villain, or a hero or a villain. But other than that, no one's ever used darkness.
Hey, future me again. That was a little bit confusing, so here's what you need to know. Basically, the Overlord was the only person to ever use darkness in the history of Ninjago.
Next, darkness's annoying little brother, destruction. Destruction is basically the same as creation, just bad, and is associated with the color dark purple. Destruction is used by many, including the Oni, Mistake, Garmadon when he reaches his full potential, the first Spinjitzu Master, and the Omega. We can see it used a lot in the most anticlimactic fight of all time. It seems to be extremely powerful, as when Garmadon uses it, he can swiftly destroy the ninja and take over Ninjago, which is something that pretty much everybody has always tried to do, so yeah. Destruction is composed of the 4 main elements and possibly influenced by darkness. Now, the 5th and final elemental essence, energy. Energy is very interesting and symbolic. It has no opposite and is very middle ground power. Energy was most notably used by Lloyd, but was also used by the first Spinjitzu Master. Energy represents the power of the yin and the good of the yang, and it seems to be the best elemental essence and can be used for good or bad. Now, when I was explaining all of that, you may have heard me use the phrase 4 main elements. The 4 main elements are kind of obvious.
Pretty obvious.
They're fire, ice, lightning, and earth. Wow. It's almost like that's what the 4 main characters use. Fire is Kai's power and is associated with the color red. Ice is Zane's power and is associated with the colors light blue and white. Lightning is Jay's power and is associated with the color blue. Earth is Cole's power and is associated with the colors brown and black. They all received their powers directly from their parents except for Zane, who received his directly from the past elemental master of ice. These are the 4 main elements. Also, if you ever hear anyone say the primary elements, that's basically the same thing. Well, I know what you're thinking. If there are primary elements, there have to be secondary elements, right? But yeah, there are actually 15 secondary elements. Or 16, depending how you look at it. Or infinite, depending how you look at it, but we'll talk about that in a sec. I don't really want to go in depth with this, so I'm just going to say the power, the name of the person who uses it in the series, and the color it's associated with. Water, Nia, Aqua and Light Blue. Metal, Karloff, Silver. Light, Pale Man, None. Speed, Griffin Turner, White. Smoke, Ash, Light Gray. Mind, Nero, Gray. Gravity, Gravis, Maroon. Nature, Bulobo, Jade and Brown. Sound, Jacob Pevsner, Cyan. Poison, Tox, Bright Green. Shadow, Shade, Black. Form, Camille, Violet and Purple. Amber, Skylar, Orange. Wind, Morrow, Dark Green. Time, Crux and Acronics, Orange, Green, Red, and Blue. Also, does anyone else love how their names represent their powers somehow? That is 15 secondary powers. But remember how I said there was 16 depending on how you look at it? Well, that's because of Dareth's power, Brown. Now, brown power doesn't really do anything. It just kind of lets you like hold brown flames for a moment and then makes you have to pee really bad. This power is only temporary, and Dareth only obtains it by drinking an overly large vat of tea from Mistake. I personally would say that there are only 15 secondary powers, but if you choose to count brown as one, and you think there are 16, that opens up the door for some very interesting questions like, can elemental powers be created? I think the answer to this question is yes, from a perspective. I think the answer to this question is kind of. Let me explain what I mean by that. If you didn't know, the first elemental masters got their power from the first Bijutsu master, who used creation to create those powers. Brown was not one of those first 15 powers. I say elemental powers can't be created. Kind of. I say that elemental powers can be created, but in the sense that they're only temporary, and they're kind of like off-brands. Like, brown's kind of like an off-brand fire in an off-brand bathroom. Yeah. That being said, there is a true way to create an elemental power. You just need to use creation to create it. But I think that you need to be extremely powerful to do this. Like, you have to be like the strongest of the strongest elemental masters ever to have creation. And then you need to be the strongest of the strongest of the strongest elemental masters ever to use it to create other powers. So in other words, the first Ninjutsu Master is the only one to have ever done this. Now, another interesting question brought up when evaluating the elemental powers is how in the world did Chen's staff ever work? I mean, he's missing 2 elemental powers and 4 elemental essences. It should not work. And 4, the Amber Master's Way. The list was originally 1, the boring way, 2, the interesting way, 3, the third way, and then 4, the Amber Master's Way. But I'm not going to do them in that order, so now the list is 1, the boring way, 2, the third way, 3, the interesting way, and 4, the Amber Master's Way. First, the boring way. Now, I'm not sure what I can say to prepare you for this, but it's really boring and bland and just lame in general. Here it is. He didn't need them all. See what I mean? Boring. Basically, he just needed the ones that he got, and there's no adventure and excitement in that at all. Second, the third way. Chen was actually the master of Amber before Skylar was born. Now, I know that you're saying, like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Wasn't it Skylar's mom? But Chen's not exactly above lying. If he was the master of Amber, that would allow him to go on a quest to obtain all the elemental powers by touching them and absorbing their power. Well, then Asher, I hear you say, why doesn't he just obtain them all using Amber? Why does he need the staff? Simple. On his quest, he met a lady, fell in love, got married, and had a child. When that child was born, his power was passed on to that child, making it so that he couldn't use his power of Amber to obtain them all. The child inherited his power before he could complete his quest, hence the reason for the staff. However, when an Amber Master is born, it doesn't absorb Amber and all the powers the previous Master got, or else Chen would have already had most, if not all of them. But it gets, like, reset in a way. Like, they have to re-obtain all the other powers. So, Chen, aware of this just unlikelihood that he had a child and it got his power, aware of this unlikelihood, he stored his powers in the crystals on his island for safekeeping. Then when he had a child, he just took the crystal with all the power in it and put it in his staff, and then collected the rest of the powers with the crystal. So then when he lost his power, he arranged for the Tournament of Elements so he could get the rest that he needed. Of course, though, he had to wait until Lloyd had the green power. Okay, so that was number 2, the third way. Now here's number 3, the interesting way. In this scenario, he's not the Master of Amber. Chen's wife is the Master of Amber, which is much more likely, and I'm just going to preface this by saying the interesting way, what I'm about to explain, is what I believe happened. The 4 elemental essences that Chen needs that he doesn't have, and the 2 elemental powers that he needs and doesn't have, are golden, creation, destruction, and darkness, and then wind and time. So those are the 6 things he needs for this to work. He has the other 15. I had to do some quick... Nope, that's not even right.
Bruh.
So he has the other 14 through the Tournament of Elements, and those are the 6 that we don't ever see him get. When Chen was imprisoned on the island, he discovered the crystals below his island and made his staff. He then decided to go on a quest and obtain all the elements so he could be the biggest, most powerful baddie in the Ninjaverse. What? In Ninjago. Now, when he set out to obtain all the powers, he realized he would need time and wind, so he set out to get wind. He realized wind would be one of the easier ones to get, so he set out to go get it. He intersected Moro on Moro's quest for the Realm Crystal, and then he found him. He succeeded when Moro was in the Caves of Despair. And then when Moro was in the Caves of Despair, Chen took his power, and Klaus banished his spirit to the Cursed Realm, leaving his body there to die and for the ninja to find it later in Season 5. So that would mean that Moro was stuck in the Cursed Realm without his power, and then when the staff is destroyed and all the powers are released, that is the moment when Moro is able to escape. And then he only needs a little opening to escape, aka when Garmadon is banished. Side note, Moro is by far my favorite villain in Ninjago. Like, he's just so cool. Now, it is way different with time. It's a bit of a stretch, but it's possible. It would be tricky, though, as he would have to take the power from either the time blades as they were going up, or any shred of the power of time as Crux and Acronics were going up. So, a very quick split instant that we can't actually see what happens to them, although I'd like to point out when Crux and Acronics go up, it looks very similar to when Chen takes powers. And then the Time Blades and the Time Twins are both restored with their powers and or shred of a power when the staff is destroyed. Now, the matter of the essences. Now, this is where it gets fun. At the time he would be taking powers, 1 of the essences is in Lloyd, 2 of the essences are dormant, and 2 of them are not in the characters they should be. So first off, obviously, energy is with Lloyd, and he takes that from Lloyd in the Tournament of Element. Now, golden and darkness are both dormant at the same time after the Overlord and Lloyd lose them. So since they're dormant, that'd be pretty easy to steal. Now, the 4th, destruction, also not extremely hard. It could have been taken from Mistake, because we never see her use her powers until the 10th season. Or just any other Oni, really. I prefer Mistake. I feel like she should be defeated once, besides the time she's defeated and possibly killed. Do we ever see Mistake after she...
No.
She might have been killed. Last, creation. Creation was originally with this first Fidgetsu Master. Then it was passed down to both his sons, Wu and Garmadon. We see Wu use it a few times when he's creating his dragon and stuff, but we never see Garmadon use it. So we never see Garmadon use this, and not only does he never use it, he's kind of like the entire premise of the show is kind of based on him trying to get the golden weapons, which are imbued with the power of creation. Now, why in the world would he need the golden weapons if he has the power of creation? Like, that doesn't make sense. Now, let's do a head count. Energy, Lloyd, check. Mistake, destruction, check. Golden, dormant, check. Darkness, dormant, check. Creation, Garmadon, check. All 5 essences accounted for. Okay, now 4th, the Amber Master's way. This is basically the same as the third way, and it's either the Amber Master, which is Chen's wife, went on the quest for Chen and put them into the staff, or she created the staff. And that's pretty much it. Nothing much else. And on that note, we will wrap up for today. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Leave a like if you liked the video. Subscribe. See you next time.